From Chicago studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Samana Siddiqui. First, the headlines. Ukraine says over 18,000 Russian soldiers have been killed. UN chief calls those pushing fossil fuels dangerous. IMAMS in Afghanistan call for reopening girls' schools. France's far-right presidential candidate seeks full hijab ban. 700-year-old paper from Quran sold in auction. British chain launches Together This Ramadan campaign. Our top story tonight. Ukraine says over 18,000 Russian soldiers have been killed so far in the war, now entering its 40th day. On March 21st, a Russian tabloid Komsomolskaya Pravda reported more than 9,000 Russian troops were killed and over 16,000 wounded, but that news was quickly removed. Ukrainian losses are being reported as around 2,000 killed. But the United Nations says the numbers are being underreported. In late March, the mayor's office in Mariupol, Ukraine, reported nearly 5,000 people killed in that city alone. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian Muslim community says about 10,000 Ukrainian Muslims have been killed. A new report released Tuesday by 3 watchdog groups highlights how big oil has cashed in on crises in the past year while enriching shareholders. The industry has used the COVID-19 pandemic, Russia's war on Ukraine, and the global climate emergency to benefit investors. The report from Bailout Watch, Friends of the Earth, and Public Citizen outlines 2 main tactics of fossil fuel giants. They repurchase shares of their own stock and retire them, reducing the number of outstanding shares and driving up share value, the report says. They also increase dividends, quarterly payments investors receive for owning shares. Oil and gas dividends have spiked in recent months, outstripping other industry groups, the report says. On Wednesday, U.S. President Joe Biden warned that Russia may use chemical weapons in Ukraine, repeating earlier allegations from the White House. The caution comes ahead of a series of summits in Europe on Russia's war in Ukraine. The last time chemical weapons were used during a conflict was in Syria, when rebels sought to oust President Bashar al-Assad. Syria only publicly admitted in 2012 that it possessed chemical weapons. At the time, Russia worked with the United States to get Damascus to accept international monitoring and the destruction of its toxic arms stocks. Indian Muslims are facing a more difficult time now than ever before over religious traditions, said a leader of the All India Muslim Personal Law Board. He compared the current persecution of Indian Muslims to that of 1857, when the British violently suppressed the freedom movement. Board General Secretary Maulana Khalid Safiullah Rahmani urged Muslims, particularly women, not to fall prey to propaganda. He said extremist forces are trying to mislead and instigate us and incite Muslim youth to take to the streets. Rahmani said the hijab controversy in Karnataka poses a big test for Muslims in that state. The law board is looking into legal remedies against a hijab ban, he said. The All India Muslim Personal Law Board is one of the leading organizations of Muslims in India. A group of Afghan religious scholars called for the immediate reopening of schools for girls across the country in grades 7 through 12. At a meeting in Balkh, the scholars said the need to educate girls is greater than ever. They said banning girls from receiving an education is not based in Islamic tradition. Maulawi Abu Hamid Hamidullah Hamidi said a country with scientific cadres in all fields and disciplines will move toward progress and excellence. He added men and women with religion and virtue can train an awake, purposeful, and committed nation. The scholars asked Maulawi Habatullah Akhundzadeh, the current leader of the Taliban, to reopen girls' high schools as soon as possible. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres accused governments and corporations of a litany of broken climate promises. He also defended activists fighting for a future free from fossil fuels. Guterres' comments came after the publication on Monday of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change's report. He called it a file of shame. It catalogs empty pledges that put the world on a fast track to climate disaster, he said. Major cities underwater, unprecedented heat waves, terrifying storms, widespread water shortages, the extinction of 1 million species of plants and animals, he added. Guterres said the truly dangerous radicals are countries increasing the production of fossil fuels, not the peaceful civil society protesters. On Monday, the Iranian Foreign Ministry blamed the U.S. for halting negotiations on nuclear issues. Spokesperson Saeed Khatibzadeh said the pause in nuclear talks between Tehran and world powers in Vienna is due to the U.S. government's attitude. He said an agreement was possible during negotiations, but talks couldn't move forward. Former U.S. President Donald Trump unilaterally withdrew from the 2015 nuclear deal with Iran in May 2018. That was followed by the reinstatement of sanctions against Iran. Since May 2019, Tehran has rolled back its commitments under the landmark deal and ramped up nuclear enrichment. Representatives from Russia, China, Germany, France, the UK, and Iran have been holding talks in Vienna to ensure full implementation of the nuclear deal. Sotheby's auction house recently sold a page from a 14th century copy of the Quran. Many archaeological artifacts were sold in the auction titled Art of the Islamic World and India, including luxurious carpets. The large page of the Quran, written in the Muhaqqaq script on pink paper, dates back to the Mamluk era in Egypt around the 14th century. The page contains verses from Surah Ash-Shura, sold for over $3,200. Another folio of the same copy of the Quran is in the collection of the Aga Khan Museum in Canada. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan on Monday decried the dissolution of Tunisia's parliament as a blow to the will of Tunisian people. The parliament was dissolved during a March 30th General Assembly session. Erdogan said an inquiry against the deputies who attended the session has been initiated. He said he hoped these developments will not jeopardize the transition toward establishing democratic legitimacy in Tunisia. Erdogan said that transition can only be successful through a comprehensive and meaningful dialogue with all sectors of society represented. Tunisia has been in the throes of a deep political crisis since last July. That's when President Kais Saied dismissed the government, suspended parliament, and assumed executive authority. On Monday, France's right-wing presidential candidate Marine Le Pen pledged to impose a total ban on hijab in public places if elected the country's next president. The leader of the National Rally Party is second in the polls after President Emmanuel Macron. She told BFM TV News Monday she aims to extend the 2004 law currently prohibiting the wearing of hijab and any religious symbols in French schools. The first round of France's presidential elections will take place this Sunday. We're bringing more news stories after the break, so stay tuned, and we'll be right back after these messages.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Despite the development of a COVID-19 vaccine, millions around the world will not have access. We need a vaccine that's free and available to everyone, everywhere. It's time for a people's vaccine.
Dad, they took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Welcome back. On Tuesday, Palestinian French human rights lawyer Salah Hamouri filed a criminal complaint against an Israeli tech surveillance company for spying. The complaint alleges the NSO group illegally infiltrated Hamouri's phone through the controversial Pegasus spyware. The infiltration was detected in an investigation by Frontline Defenders, an Irish human rights group, last November. Hamouri alleges the surveillance into his professional and private life was initiated in Jerusalem and continued in France. It violates his right to privacy under French law, he says. Hamouri claims he faces repeated persecution by Israeli authorities, including imprisonment, arbitrary arrests, travel bans, exorbitant bail and fines, and house arrests. Ramadan food bazaars across Malaysia are teeming with people as COVID-19 restrictions barring large gatherings have been lifted. The afternoon bazaars are fully operational after 2 years of virus lockdowns and restrictions. Many in the Muslim-majority Southeast Asian nation frequent these markets, browsing arrays of takeaway food and drink choices to break their fast with. Ramadan fasting began on Saturday. Throughout April, Tesco will mark Ramadan with its first ever campaign centered on iftar, the evening meal at the end of daily fasting. More than 3 million Tesco customers in the UK observe Ramadan every year. And for the first time, the supermarket chain is highlighting the month through the Together This Ramadan campaign as part of a commitment to inclusivity. Created in partnership with UK-based global ad agency BBH, digital billboards show empty plates filling up with food as the sun sets. Helen Rhodes, executive creative director at BBH, said the goal was to make something that spoke to the community. Asad Duna, founder and chief executive of the UK consulting group The Unmistakable, said the campaign helps brands stand behind the community and stave off any negative criticisms. Coming up next after the break is our in-depth analysis segment, so stay tuned and we'll be right back after these messages.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Imam Malik Mujahid in Chicago. Just like you, I was moved by that Allahu Akbar lady. She stood her ground, fearful of none, for her hijab and for her education. Sisters and brothers, Indian Muslims are facing a genocide. India does not care for Muslim protesting, but it does care for the world opinion. Therefore, we must push the United Nations. The UN has a responsibility to protect. They must prevent genocide. Please sign this UN petition now. Get others to sign. It will help. Trust me, it will help. We need 1 million signatures, brothers and sisters. Please sign now.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Despite the development of a COVID-19 vaccine, millions around the world will not have access. We need a vaccine that's free and available to everyone, everywhere. It's time for a people's vaccine.
Dad, they took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Welcome back. To discuss the visit of American Interfaith Women's visit to Afghanistan, let's go to Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid. Over to you, Imam Mujahid.
Thank you, Samana. A delegation of interfaith women went from America to Afghanistan. They took a message of peace as well as education. With us is one of the leaders of this delegation, Reverend Dr. Chloe Breyer. Welcome to Muslim Network TV, Chloe.
Well, Malik, thank you so much. It's an honor to be on here. And as the director at the Interfaith Center of New York, we have been supporters and admirers of yours for quite a long time. So we were a diverse and interfaith delegation that went to Afghanistan. Many of us, came back after repeated visits. I myself had helped to be part of a interfaith effort to rebuild a mosque in Afghanistan in 2003, and then had gone back repeatedly to help with schools and clinics. So this was not the first time for many of us, but my goodness, it was a different kind of environment we found ourselves in when we arrived.
Well, I hope you were peaceful and had a peaceful conversation with Taliban. So what was Taliban's who you met with the Taliban, and what was your conversation with them?
Well, as you mentioned, we had a twofold purpose to our trip. One was to address the increasing poverty that seems to have been a direct result of the decision to freeze the $7 billion of Afghan people's funds that were in the central bank. And so to address that, both with our government and other governments around the world, we also had a message that girls' education is a non-negotiable. And so we had the advantage of being able to meet both with NGOs and with schools that have been trying so hard to educate girls and boys in this environment, and then had the opportunity to meet with representatives of the Ministry of Education, of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and also the head of the central bank. And there, we got the impression that there were a whole lot of different opinions when it came to girls' education, even within the Taliban government, and that the people that we met with had said, if the minute that our higher ups, I assume that means the Emir, decide that all girls must be educated, a minute later, we will begin this work. Because I think what people understand is that without girls' education and boys' education, K through all the way through higher education, there will be no doctors, there will be no teachers, there will be no professionals. And that's something that's not in Afghanistan's interest or anyone else's.
So were they courteous? How was the meeting? Were they saying, who were these women coming from America?
Well, we definitely were the first American women's civil society delegation to have come to Afghanistan since the fall in August 15th. We were certainly we were treated in a courteous manner. People, received us. I think they were very, eager to welcome foreign visitors. I think that they understand that being isolated in this day and age is not really something that's in people's long-term interest. Again, we were treated very graciously, had lots of time given to us. The Minister of Education then turned around and came to a press conference that we did at our hotel, where we had a lot of Afghan media, and he came in person and listened to the questions and concerns, not only that we raised, but fellow Afghans raised, the reporters, the very brave women reporters who were there, who said, well, why should we, release the funding? Because the Taliban just lie. They don't tell the truth, is what she said. And I think, she probably had a point that there was a lot of trust building that needed to happen. So
who were the part of the delegation along with you?
Well, we had the Masuda Sultan, who she herself is Afghan, and and came to the United States when she was very young. She is the co-founder of Women for Afghan Women, along with Sunita Viswanath, who is another co-founder. We had Ruth Messenger, the former borough president of Manhattan, and also the president of American Jewish World Service. And I just have to say, it was an amazing thing to be able to introduce ourselves and our faith traditions very openly. It's something I've never done in any of my previous visits, but I introduced myself as a Christian minister. Ruth had introduced herself as the head of Jewish American World Service. We had Sunita as a founder of Hindus for Human Rights as well, and then Kelly Campbell from September 11th Families for Peaceful Tomorrows, Daisy Khan from WISE as well. Nydia Benjamin also with Code Pink.
So did you see how the Afghan media covered the delegation?
Yes, we did. We got Tolo News covered it a lot. I got calls from Afghan friends actually as far away as in Canada saying that they had seen us on there, and they covered it, very kind of they covered our requests and what we said very accurately, which was that this twofold reason for coming to Afghanistan had to do with the alleviation of poverty, and that was something that our own governments could do, and also the education of girls, which was something that the government of Afghanistan had to take a very strong stand on, and didn't seem to be so far.
Well, tell us, Chloe, that when you met the civil society people, of course, there is a sort of a peace in which there are no bombing and drones and things like that. So people outside the government, were they comforted by that fact, or the current troubles, financial difficulties were looming larger on their mind?
Well, it's interesting because one person we talked to said, well, under the previous government, we had jobs, but no security. And under this government, we have security, but no jobs. And I think what they meant by that is particularly the men who have lived in Afghanistan for a long time were finding a lot more freedom to be able to travel throughout the provinces. That really, this was something that hadn't happened in 40 years, where you could drive from one end of the country to the other without fear of an explosion or an IED or something like that. And that really was a huge difference. It wasn't felt quite so much among the women we talked to, because as you know, there are very strict strict rules about women having had to have somebody to accompany them, a male relative, if they go beyond 74 kilometers. There's rules about dress that I think makes women particularly feel rather less secure than many of the men we talked to. But that was certainly a very important point and distinction between this government and the last, was that people did feel physically like they were more secure.
So did you see in Kabul women on the street, or there were no women on the street?
We saw a lot of women on the street. I had thought that we'd be, and not only that, but we saw a lot of women not in burqas. I mean, I was thinking we'd arrive and it would just be exactly like, it was in the 90s, of all the sea of blue. And it wasn't that way at all. There were some burqas, but many women and girls who were, covering themselves in different colored headscarves. And again, downtown Kabul was not the, what I thought it would be when we arrived. Again, I cannot speak for the provinces because we weren't able to go there. But it was not exactly what I thought it would be.
So this delegation, which you and others were part of, probably was the first civil society delegation from the United States. What are the next steps you're thinking? Because both issues which you are speaking for, the girls' education, as well as the unfreezing of the Afghan assets, both are the demands which are one from Taliban government and one from the American government are unmet. So right. Is there a follow-up plan to pursue these demands?
So we have, I mean, again, you asked about what were the meetings like with the Taliban. Everybody assured us that it would happen. No one could give us a date as to when it would. And I think we'll be continuing to try to apply pressure where we can. We have notes that we've written to people who hosted us that we would do as a follow-up of some kind. In terms of our own government, we are trying to do a congressional briefing. We are trying to, we've talked to USAID about doing a briefing. We'll be doing a webinar that is open to the public next Monday night at 6 o'clock Eastern time. And that will be a way to just convey what happened on the trip. And this is a group of women who've been doing advocacy for a long time. So one thing that we can be sure is that we will continue to advocate for these two goals for Afghanistan that have not yet, as you point out, been met. The trip was the first step. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Chloe Breyer, Reverend Chloe Breyer, for your time, for your courage to go there. Were you able? Did you need the U.S. government permission to go there?
No, and to be honest, we didn't ask for it either. We informed the State Department that we would be going, and there we go. So,
thank you so much, Chloe.
Okay, great, thank you.
Take care. Back to you, Samana.
Thank you, Imam Mujahid. That's all from our Chicago studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can find previous episodes and more on our YouTube or Facebook. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Salam and good night.